Hello and welcome. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Ishan Russell. Today we discuss a topic that has been the subject of a raging debate across the country as well as Parliament, the Juvenile Justice Bill 2014. And this debate has split opinions across the country right down the middle, with some sections suggesting that the bill violates the basic tenets of child rights, while others are suggesting that this is the need of the hour, citing rise in juvenile crimes. There's also a huge amount of public sentiment attached to this as well, because it comes at the back of the release of the juvenile rapist of Nirbhaya. And so to help me decipher the provisions of this bill, its need and impact, I'm joined by Shamina Shafiq, former member of the National Commission for Women, Dr. Sambit Patra, national spokesperson of the BJP as well, and we'll be joined by a host of other guests. But Dr. Patra, coming across to you first, let's understand the government's point of view as far as this bill is concerned, because there's a huge amount of public sentiment that is attached to this particular bill as well. So where is the government coming from on the Juvenile Justice Bill 2014?
As far as this bill is concerned, I think I should refrain from speaking a lot about this issue presently, because this bill is being discussed right now on the floor of the Parliament. But still, since I'm in a debate, a few points have to be kept in perspective. Number one, as you rightly pointed out, there is a lot of public sentiments attached post-Nirbhaya with this particular incident, as the reason being that the juvenile in this particular case, in the Nirbhaya case, was only 6 months short of becoming 18, and he was the most brutal one in attacking the whole issue. So naturally, there was a sentiment that this juvenile should not come out of the prisons, and he should in fact be serving complete life term. As far as this government is concerned, this government categorically speaks, number one, that, well, 16 to 18 years of age, if he is mentally capable, then let the juvenile board and the judges in the juvenile board take a call on it. And I think that's what the discussions are on right now, and they are going, and the discussions are on. Let's wait for the outcome to be laid on the table. But I would say that this government wants to respect the public sentiment that if you are capable of performing a heinous crime, then you should take the punishment as well.
All right, so we've heard the government's take. We're also joined by Satya Prakash, legal editor of Hindustan Times. And Shamina, before I come to you, Satya, just to help us understand, there are voices against this bill also, saying that it's a little rushed. It has a few flaws in it, and even some parliamentarians expressing that point of view. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I heard a couple of members of DMK and NCP. They spoke against the bill, and Mr. Derek O'Brien, he said that particularly the government should be taking much more active, playing much more active role in rehabilitation of such children. But having said that, the bill is an attempt to strike a balance between two approaches. One is to reform the delinquent juvenile, the other is to punish. Because the current bill is heavily tilted towards reform. I'm not saying that is wrong or right, but in the last couple of years, the kind of incidents that we have witnessed, even after Nirbhaya's case, that has changed the public perception about juvenile crime, and particularly in the age group of 16 to 18, the nature of crime that they have been committing. Most of the people, they are thinking that it should be changed, but even then, there is attempt to strike a balance, because we are not going to treat them as adults.
Right.
As much has been said about the fact that they will be tried in adult courts. But so far as the punishment is concerned, they are not going to be given death penalty or life imprisonment or 10 years. The punishment is much less. And then after 3 years or 5 years, they can still be reintegrated into the mainstream of the society, depending upon the fact that what kind of measures we take to reform them, because only putting them behind the bars may not help.
All right, Shamina, your take on this particular bill, and as Satya was pointing out, that the previous bill was perhaps too tilted in the favor of reform, and is this bill going to be enough of a deterrence?
Definitely, to a certain extent, provided we are able to sort of make the society aware of the existing law or whatever amendments we are going to make in the present bill, because it is very important to have the awareness spread amongst the society, because it's absolutely of no use to have an act or a law in place if we are not able to sort of bring in the fear of law amongst the perpetrators, that if you're going to get into any such act, you're going to be punished. Now, as far as reforms is concerned, before that, I would like to say that unfortunately, I don't know why, but this entire discourse seems to be children versus women, although it is not.
Right.
Women are as much concerned about children as, for that matter, anybody else in the society, rather more concerned because we are mothers. But the fact of the matter remains that if you look at the data, you'll find that yes, the children, especially in the bracket of 16 to 18, they are getting into more such heinous crimes. And besides, this entire amendment that we are really talking about is not sort of blindly putting every child behind bars and punishing him for something maybe which he has done unawares, not unknowingly. But in this case, especially in the case of Nirbhaya and in many such cases, boys of certain age are actually getting into such heinous crimes knowingly and for the sake of enjoyment, and also knowing that they are not going to be punished.
But there is a different view, and as far as the Nirbhaya case is concerned, just for our viewers' understanding, let's also understand that this, of course, the Juvenile Justice Bill will not happen retrospectively for that particular case. So, as far as the treatment of that juvenile is concerned, that has happened as per the legally established norms at that particular point of time. But Satya, Prakash, coming to the point that Shamina was raising about the fact that it's not children versus women, and as far as children's vulnerability is concerned, is this particular law addressing that? Because while you're lowering the age, that means that about 25% of India's population is below 18 years of age. That's 40 crore people. So in that sense, do they become more vulnerable? Do we see there are fears that are also being expressed as far as this particular bill is concerned?
Certain aspects of the previous law, which is the current law, and the amendment, both certain aspects need to be addressed. One is about the functioning of the juvenile justice boards,
right,
the way they function and the way they are constituted. And second is the child welfare committees. In most part of the country, in most of the states, child welfare committees are not functioning properly. Even the Supreme Court has expressed serious concern about that. But that is not being addressed unless these two issues are addressed properly. I am afraid even the amended bill may not take care of all the concerns that we are trying to address.
All right, Dr. Patra, coming to you, as far as the Juvenile Justice Board is concerned, that assumes a very critical nature as far as the provisions of this bill goes, and many say that as far as infrastructure to support the Juvenile Justice Board in every district, that will be a huge task, and it will be upon the government to implement it. So are there real fears, or do you think that the government will be up to task and implement those?
No, I'm sure it has to be a holistic approach. If the government is taking up these amendments, if the government is discussing it on the floor of the parliament today, and the government's intention is absolutely clear that a changed law has to be brought in keeping with the safety norms of this country, I'm sure that the government also would be going into details as to how the juvenile justice boards have to be improved, because only a holistic approach can look into this whole issue. I'm sure the government will be doing it.
All right, you think sure the government will do it, but as far as the provisions of this bill, Satya, to help me understand this, the provision of trying a juvenile committing a serious heinous offence as an adult based on a date of apprehension could violate Article 14 of the Constitution, that's right to equality, and Article 21 requiring that laws and procedures are fair and reasonable. The provision also counters the spirit of Article 20, Part 1 by according a higher penalty for the same offence if the person is apprehended after 21 years of age. So in terms of standing the scrutiny of the courts, will this bill stand?
Well, it's for the courts to scrutinize the law and then come up with verdicts in case these provisions are challenged. But I'm sure so far as the challenge under Article 20 is concerned, that's a serious challenge, because the law, the amendment says for the same offence, if the offender is arrested at after the age of 21, so he or she can be given more punishment. While the law says, the Constitution says under Article 20 that the law applicable to a crime would be the law that existed at the date of the crime. So at the date of the crime, the person was a juvenile, so he should be treated as juvenile on a par with other juveniles. This only mere fact that the person was arrested late at a later date cannot aggravate the crime and warrant much more punishment. So that part is problematic. So far as the challenge under Article 14 or 21 is concerned, for the law, particularly 21, for the law to be just, fair and reasonable, that is due procedure requirement under 21, I think that test can be met because rest of the things are being taken care of. But 20, challenge under Article 20 can be serious.
All right. So that is one thing that we'll have to wait and watch for. But Shamina, the point that you were making about the rising incidence of crime amongst juveniles. Now, even the Standing Committee of Parliament that studied this bill earlier had said that that is because of more reporting of crime rather than the actual occurrence of crime. So in that sense, is the government on the right foot as far as pushing this bill through?
See, even if the reporting has risen, which is of course it has risen, especially after 2012, but that means that the crime is definitely taking place. And you would also, talk about one other aspect, and that is that still the crime which is being actually committed is underreported right now. So that means we at least have some kind of a figure wherein we see that such young boys are actually getting involved into such incidences. So then what are we doing about it? For example, you are very right when you're saying that in case of Nirbhaya, obviously nothing is really going to happen. That man is already out. But what message have we given to others? For example, very recently we saw that a 2-year-old child was raped by, 2 teenagers. And why did they do so, especially in Delhi? Because people, and especially that age, they are getting that notion that we can get away with that. That is one aspect which really needs to be taken into account. The other thing is, I think it's a welcome move when the government is saying that we are going to be ensuring that every district now has a proper system in place. But my question is that government is always serious when it talks about making certain laws or making amendments in certain laws. But when it comes to actually application of those laws, it's a tedious task and the government doesn't really, because these are the conditions wherein we are talking right now. These are basically knee-jerk reactions. Nirbhaya's mother was sitting at India Gate, we see the parliament working. Otherwise, everybody is like relaxed. For example, under the DV Act, the Domestic Violence Protection Act, there is a provision of having a protection officer in every district. She or he is supposed to actually take care of all those women who are undergoing this domestic violence, which is actually hugely reported. But if you actually at ground level, reality is much more different. You ask these protection officers, A, they are not aware of the responsibilities, B, they do not have the resources to sort of even make out and reach out to such women. So what is going to be the status of this amendment and the provisions of every district? That again needs to be really looked into, because just by passing an act, it's not going to really work. And also reform homes. So many people have been talking about that what is going to happen to really children. 0.1% or maybe 0.2% kids are actually involved into such heinous of the heinous crimes. Agreed. What is happening to 99.9% of the children in the juvenile homes or otherwise who are living on the streets of Delhi or maybe any other city? Who is looking into their welfare? Is the state really serious about those children? Those people, those political parties who are arguing about the welfare of the children, we are also so very much concerned about the welfare of the children. But what is actually happening to those kids who are not maybe involved into such criminal activities? Are we really talking about their reforms? Are we really talking about their rehabilitations? We are not. We are talking about this because we see some people on the roads, and that is why we're sitting and we are doing certain amendments. I'm sorry, but this approach of any government is not at all good and not at all good for the welfare of the people.
All right, Dr. Patra, is this too much of a knee-jerk reaction to the public sentiment that has been brewing after the release of the Juvenile in the Nirbhaya case?
No, I would not say it's a knee-jerk reaction, because 3 years has passed since the gory incident of Nirbhaya, way back in 2012. So naturally, if it had been a knee-jerk reaction, then probably by now we would have had the amendment in place. That it took 3 long years. It went through the standing committee, and today we have the Rajya Sabha discussing it on it. Well, yes, I agree with the fact that politics has been played over it. I agree with the fact that the parliament would not have been functioning. The opposition would not have been allowing a discussion on this whole issue had not been people on the streets protesting. But to say that this is a knee-jerk is wrong. Rather, I would say it was a much-needed amendment, though it is coming a bit late. It is something with which the common public perception and public sensitivity was attached, because what we had seen in Nirbhaya's case was an eye-opener. He was the most brutal of all the handlers, and he was only 6 months short of being a major. So naturally, the question that was left to the society to answer was, what should be done in these cases? And today what the parliament is discussing, and what we may see after a while as an amendment, as a law, is what the answer that emanates after due diligence, both socially as well as politically.
All right, but Satya, as far as the reform measures of this bill are concerned, the rehabilitation of children, this bill talks about a lot of interesting things apart from the fact that the age is being lowered. It talks about adoption, it talks about children's welfare, it talks about, as I was hearing the Women and Child Minister Maneka Gandhi speak about, the state of juvenile homes in the country, and these are really pressing needs, aren't they?
Apart from that, also it has increased punishment for those giving drugs to children, those misusing children for other purposes. So that way, the other provisions of the bill are great. The only problem, not just with the bill, the entire discussion, the problem is most of us are confusing, or rather, trying to discuss both the things. Like there are certain preventive measures. As parents, we would like to, take preventive measures so that our children don't get into crime. But once a child has committed a crime, can we let him or her go without any punishment? Depending on, there is a concept of doli in capex. Children below the age of 7, they are considered that they are incapable of forming any evil intention, and hence they are completely exonerated from any responsibility. But below the above 7 and below 12, there is separate category, and above that. This law, the current law, the real problem was it does not distinguish between a minor crime and a major crime, a heinous crime. If a heinous crime has been committed, as a society, what should be our response? As a state, what should be our response? That the current law is not capable of addressing. The amendment is trying to address that. So far as preventive measures are concerned, there are lots of things as a society we can do, as parents we can do, that should be done. But once a crime has been committed, because the criminal law does not operate in a vacuum or in abstract terms. Something has happened, so law will, because punishment is the most response to a crime. Right. So punishment has to be there, and deterrence has to be there. That's a different thing, that deterrence alone cannot solve all the problems, but deterrence has to be there.
All right, we're also joined by Anant Kumar Asthana. He is a lawyer and expert on juvenile justice. Anant, first your opinion as far as this particular bill is concerned, and then we'll get into the other conversation.
I'm very sad about the bill, because firstly, whatever it tells it's gonna do, it's not doing that also. For example, it goes around saying that we are gonna do something great for victims' rights and we're gonna make women very safe now. Exactly on the victim's right, it does nothing except a highly ill-conceived judicial waiver. It's a very bad copy of judicial waiver system which exists in Western countries. You are bringing a failed formula in a very bad design. That's one. On public safety, you are actually putting public at more risk. You are opening the gate of jails for people as young as 16. 42% of population below 18. 75% people below poverty line. Your jails are full, more than full. And you are going to send more kids to jail without any evidence. Mind it, in the law, a child is going to be treated as an adult at the level of FIR. There is no charge sheet. Police is still doing the investigation. But you are telling the court that look at the circumstances of offense, look at the maturity, and then decide him and send him to jail. The boy doesn't have anything to say at that stage. Tomorrow, if that boy who has been sent to the adult court as an adult, if he turns out to be innocent, what answer you will give to that boy? That despite me being innocent, you send me to jail. Who will compensate that boy? So it's a great injustice for those who are falsely implicated in the case. The bill doesn't even think about that. Public safety, in 10, 15 years, we will see a great swell in the crime and criminals. I don't think that is gonna make society very safe, and that's why I feel very sad. That is one. The bill has so many provisions. Some of the provisions are fantastic, but some of the provisions are very sad. For example, the existing law has a wonderful provision called aftercare. If there is a boy who has been into the juvenile justice system up to the age of 18 years, but he is not fit to be released in the society, he doesn't have any skill, he doesn't know where to go, The aftercare program allows the state government to keep that boy under the state protection up to the age of 21 years. The present bill completely eliminates the aftercare and has reduced it to one-time financial assistance. When the boy is 18, you give him 10,000 rupees and say goodbye, good luck for your life. That have you done to the aftercare. Definition of orphans. Such a sad definition. We talk about family responsibility. We say if you can produce the child, you also have to take responsibility for the child. Now this new bill defines orphan as also as somebody whose parents are not willing to take care of you. So my parents don't want to take care of me, I become an orphan. What kind of philosophy this bill is following? You are telling people, just come to us and tell that you don't want to take care of child and we will declare him orphan. How many orphans you can create in the country? And why do you want to create more orphans? You should tell the parents that if you don't take care of the child, I will send you to jail or I will force you to take care of your child. This bill is actually sad on several counts. We have been telling from the very beginning, we hoped that the bill will go to a select committee because this bill actually requires much more discussion. We are not saying do exactly what I'm saying, but at least think with people who care, at least think with people who know the subject. No, nothing like that. We have designed something and we will pass it and we will use Nirbhaya case to make the Rajya Sabha surrender to that panic. And that's what exactly is happening. There are people in Rajya Sabha pointing out that look at this provision, look at this provision, look at this provision. But no, I don't think...
All right, Dr. Patra, I'll let you respond to the fact that, as Anant is saying, that the bill is silent on very critical factors.
Well, yes, if the bill is silent on critical factors, as was told before this, that's the reason as to why. I mean, a democratic country has debates on the floor of the parliament before passing the bill. Let the collective efforts of all the members of parliaments on the floor of parliament itself decide if there is any lacunae. Surely the parliament will look into it. But remember, as I was saying in my previous answer, 3 long years has already passed. It's high time that this question should be answered for all times to come. And remember, not me or any politician, but the Chief Justice of India, Justice Thakur, also spoke very recently saying that, in fact, it's high time that the law should be enacted. And in fact, the law, though will not apply retrospectively, but at least would act as a guide for the future. Well, in a democratic system, anyone and everyone has the right to criticize. And I think that's the beauty of it. The parliamentarians are deciding over it, debating over it. Let's see what the outcome is.
All right, final comments to you, Shamina.
Well, I mean, like Dr. Patra said just now, I think it is very important for the parliamentarians now to actually sit and talk about it very seriously. And there are certain aspects, for example, the definition of orphan that the gentleman pointed out right now. I think this is something which really needs a lot of deliberation and people really need to rethink about it. If at all this is going to happen, then it is really scary because as it is, safety, security and welfare of children should be the state responsibility, and you just can't actually shrug the family also now out of the entire responsibility. This is one aspect. The other thing is, if in all true spirit, if the bill is passed, I think the focus should then tilt towards the right implementation of the bill at the act, because that is the most important. Even today, the JJ board that you're really talking about, only 6, I think, states have them in place. So how are we going to build a mechanism which is going to ensure that the implementation of the entire process is actually happening at the grassroots level? That is something which is more important. And 3 years that he's actually talking about, it's really very sad that for 3 long years, people really did not discuss this subject as seriously as we are discussing today.
Fair enough. Satya, your final comments on this.
Well, even the current law, Anant would say that it's one of the best laws in the world. Even under the current law, since the Child Welfare Committee is not functioning, JJ boards are not constituted properly as per the norms, and there are various other, like observation homes are not functioning properly, reformatories are not functioning properly. So the intention to reform the children in conflict with law, that is not happening. So even in the bill, which is getting amended, the amended provision also, unless all these things are put in place and implemented properly, nothing will happen. So ultimately, the focus should be right implementation of the law, whatever law is. Some of the provisions maybe Anand finds it wrong, or he wants it to be amended, maybe some other people would think that those are the right provisions. Like somebody, if the parents are not ready to accept their own ward, then the child is effectively orphan. So the state will take care of that. Those kind of children. There has to be some care. That's the real problem, a real issue. And this act, in my understanding, is trying to address those concerns.
Okay.
If there are any lacunae, it's still under consideration of the honorable members of the Rajya Sabha. They will try to address it, and let's hope something better will come out.
All right, and Anant, final comment to you. Just have about a minute.
See, the bill is simply showing anger on the boys who commit serious offences. So it's as simple as that. I don't want to deal with you guys. I will throw you into the jail and you will rot there. This is the judicial waiver, and we simply don't understand any logic, because these children are our children. Whatever they have become is collective responsibility of society and state.
Right.
We cannot run away. If we are allowing porn sites to function, if we are allowing a drug business to happen, if adults are selling guns to kids and they are misusing it, how can we fix responsibility only on kids? You don't have guts to ban the porn sites, but you will send a child to the jail because he has become a sexual offender. Look at the root cause. You don't want to do that.
Okay. So it's indeed a larger discussion, and it is going on across the country as well as Parliament, and we've run out of time, but thank you very much, Shamina, Satya, Anant, and as well as Dr. Patra for coming in and helping us understand this particular law. Indeed, the conversation and the opinions are very varied on this, and even if Parliament passes it, there would be a much debate that would go on, and we'll of course keep a track on that for you as well. But thanks so much for watching for now. Goodbye.